this is a meeting about the revival of the blasphemy law. It's not actually incidentally a new law, but it's basically being revived by the Justice Minister, Dermot Ahern. And this is one of a series of meetings across the country to give information on the blasphemy law itself, and I suppose to put across a point of view that would be opposed to the blasphemy law, why Irish people should oppose the introduction or the revival of this law. And there's two speakers at our meeting tonight, and the first of them will be Michael Nugent, who is the chairperson of an organisation called Atheist Ireland, which is effectively a secular campaign group which I think aims to promote a rational, ethical and secular society free from supernaturalism and superstition, I think is its gambit. And the second speaker will be Lothar Lucan, who's a poet and formerly the president of the Friends of the Earth, and he's a local man now. And so basically they're the two speakers tonight, and I'll hand over to Michael.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Adam. Just to put the meeting in context, this is going to be part of a lengthy campaign. There is this law is making its way through the Oireachtas at the moment. To put the duration in context, it's technically called the Defamation Bill 2006, and it's finally reaching the stage that they're discussing it at committee stage in the Oireachtas. And after that 2 to 3 year period, the Minister for Justice sprung on a meeting about a month and a bit ago his intention to insert a clause into the bill reviving the criminal offence of blasphemy in Ireland. Now, the context of it is that blasphemy is an offence described in the Constitution. It's one of the only offences that's three that are listed in the Constitution, that it will be an offence punishable by law. So then it's up to the law to create the definition of blasphemy and the punishment for blasphemy. And to date, that had initially been done in the 1961 Defamation Act. But they didn't put in a definition of what blasphemy was, and in the only case that that law was tested in court in the late 1990s, the Supreme Court found that because there wasn't a definition of blasphemy in the Act, it was impossible to tell what the offence of blasphemy consisted of, and on that basis they couldn't take the case forward. So from 1999 onwards, it was assumed that blasphemy, although it was technically on the books, just was gone because it couldn't be implemented. Various bodies over the last 20 years, independent bodies, the Law Reform Commission and various constitutional review groups, both an independent one and an all-party Oireachtas one, have all recommended removing blasphemy as an offence from the Constitution by way of referendum. And that hasn't been done, and it is what should be done now. Dermot Ahern acknowledges that that's another option, but he just refuses to do it. He says that his options are to remove the offence of blasphemy or to re-legislate for it, and he says he's choosing to re-legislate it for it because he says that the people wouldn't thank him for putting a referendum before it. Now, it's kind of simultaneously a very silly law and a very dangerous law. It's very silly for the obvious reasons, and I hope we don't have to go into how absurd the idea of a blasphemy law in a modern, secular, pluralist democracy is in the 21st century. But it's also a dangerous law because the way that Dermot Ahern is proposing to define blasphemy in this new bill is if somebody says something that is grossly offensive or abusive, to matters held sacred by any religion, which is a vague enough concept in the first place. And if that causes outrage among a substantial number of adherents of any religion, that's the trigger for testing whether or not something is blasphemous. Now there's another clawback that I'll come to in a second, but what I want to focus on for the moment is that what Dermot Ahern is doing is incentivising people to demonstrate outrage when people say something or print something that is different to their own beliefs. Now I think that's a very dangerous thing to do, particularly in a Europe where we've seen how some fundamentalist Muslims can display outrage when cartoons are published that they feel offends their religion, or when novels are published that they feel offend their religion. And I think what we should be doing as a society is trying to educate people to react in a more healthy way than outrage when people say things that conflict with their beliefs, however fundamental those beliefs may be. And one of the things that we're focusing on is the fact that there is an artistic element to this as well, in terms of freedom of expression in an artistic sense. Then over the coming months, I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know whether they're going to pass the bill before the summer or whether they're going to delay it until later. But if they pass it, it will be a campaign to have it repealed. If they don't address it, it'll be a campaign to try to prevent it from being implemented. And if they do pull back from it, that'll obviously be a cause for celebration, but it won't be the end of what we're doing, because this is just one manifestation of a lot of items in our constitution that are causing these sort of problem, that are causing this sort of problem overall. It's currently unconstitutional for a judge or the president to take office without swearing a religious oath. That involves them asking the Trinitarian God to assist them and guide them in their decisions. Which incidentally means if you do end up getting charged with blasphemy, that you'll be tried by a judge who has sworn to ask the Trinitarian God to guide him or her in their judgment about your blasphemy. People's rights are being infringed on the basis of these medieval crimes that belong to an era where people used to have their tongues torn out or pierced with irons and their foreheads branded with a letter B for blaspheming. That's the era that the crime of blasphemy should belong in. We should not be putting up with it anywhere today.
I think there's a perfect upcoming opportunity to get rid of this relic once and for all from the Irish Constitution. I mean, I don't understand why Dermot Ahern and the government don't just amend it onto the upcoming Treaty on Lisbon. It's a perfect opportunity to get this relic from the 50s finally done away with and buried, and I'm baffled as to why he's chosen to create a new law for this.
I'm becoming more and more baffled as to why he's doing it as it goes on, because initially he was claiming, and still is claiming, that he's doing it because he has an obligation to do it. He's not claiming that he wants to do it. He's claiming that he has an obligation to do it because there is a clause in the Constitution that makes blasphemy an offence, and that if he removes the punishment for blasphemy that's in the current Defamation Act, that he has to replace it with a new punishment, or there will be a constitutional gap. Now there's two problems with that. The first is that first of all, there won't be a gap. There isn't currently a punishment for blasphemy in Ireland because the Supreme Court has found that the current law is not operable. And secondly, he's saying that he's doing this on the advice of the Attorney General. Yet late last year, a group called the Venice Commission, that's an independent legal advisory body on constitutional matters to the Council of Europe, produced a report on freedom of expression and freedom of religion that recommended that blasphemy should not be an offence, and that it should be abolished where it is an offence and should not be revived. Now that proposal was co-written by a group of 4 members of that body, one of whom was the Director General of the Office of the Irish Attorney General. So I've no notion where or how selectively Dermot Ahern is cherry picking whatever advice that he is being given. We also have plans on a more serious basis to get a large number of people to simultaneously publish a blasphemous statement the day after the bill is passed, if it is passed, so that it doesn't drag on as something that's there and you have to test it. It's going to be tested fairly quickly if it is passed.